What happens when a Hollywood chameleon known for disappearing into his characters walks into a daytime talk show expecting soft questions, only to run headfirst into a moment that leaves an entire studio frozen in breathless silence? Before we dive into the moment that stunned everyone watching, make sure you subscribe to Stage View and like and comment to help us bring you more unbelievable Hollywood stories that the cameras almost weren't ready for. The lights were bright, even by talk show standards. There's something about midday television. The colors look softer, but the energy burns hotter. Producers rush, cameras blink red, and the audience waits in a kind of suspended excitement, buzzing with that "we might see something big today" feeling. No one knew that today they actually would. Jared Leto walked onto the stage with that unsettling calm he's known for. The quiet sort of confidence that feels harmless until you realize it's the kind that can shift a whole room. He smiled as the crowd applauded, but it wasn't a wide, easy smile. It was the kind that held something behind it, a secret, or maybe a storm. Sunny Hostin sat across from him, cards in hand, sharp eyes taking in every movement. She's known for firmness, clarity, the kind of interviewer who doesn't hide behind fluff. And Jared, well, Jared has never been one to play safe. The moment he sat down, people sensed it, something charged, like static gathering before a crack of lightning. "So," Sunny began, her voice bright but steady, "you've been known for your extreme transformations in film. But recently, you've been catching attention for other things." Jared tilted his head just a fraction, as if listening to a distant sound. "Other things," he echoed. "That's vague." "Is it?" Sunny asked, deliberate. "Some say your intensity crosses boundaries, that you immerse yourself so deeply that the people around you sometimes feel uncomfortable." A few audience members chuckled softly, nervously. Jared didn't. He leaned back, fingers interlaced, and studied Sunny as though deciding what kind of conversation this would become. "Well," he said slowly, "discomfort can be a part of the process. Growth isn't supposed to be cozy." Sunny didn't blink. "But does everyone agree to be part of your process?" The phrase hung in the air. Not heavy, sharp. Like something stainless steel, glinting under lights. The crowd went quiet. Jared's smile faded. "Are we talking about acting?" he asked. "Or are we talking about rumors?" Sunny mirrored his seriousness. "We're talking about behaviors that have raised questions." Jared's jaw moved just slightly, a subtle clench, as though he'd bitten into something bitter. "Questions," he repeated, "or accusations?" The studio felt smaller, suddenly. Tighter. Even the air seemed to pause. Off camera, a producer took a step forward, unsure whether to intervene. But the cameras kept rolling. Sunny set her cards down. Not dramatically, just a simple gesture that carried weight. "You've built a reputation," she said, "as someone who takes things to extremes. Some say it creates brilliance. Others say it borders on crossing lines. And what do you say?" Jared asked, his voice quiet, almost too quiet. Sunny inhaled, slow and measured. "I say accountability matters." There it was. A few gasps. A shifting of bodies in the audience. The kind of reaction that says, "Wait, are we watching a daytime show or a confrontation?" Jared didn't look away. "Sounds like you have something specific in mind," he said. "Many things," Sunny replied. "But let's start with what you said recently about needing to stay in character on set, even when people around you didn't know how to handle it." The tension built like a drawn bowstring. Jared leaned forward. "Acting," he said, "isn't about comfort. It's about truth. You want a watered-down performance? Sure, I can give you that. But if you want something real, something that stays with people, then sometimes the process is difficult." Sunny countered instantly. "Difficult for whom? For you? Or for everyone you pull into it without warning?" A murmur swept through the crowd. Jared's eyes narrowed. "You're turning artistic commitment," he said, into something sinister. "I'm asking questions people want answers to," Sunny replied. "People who've worked with you. Fans who watch your films." The air quivered. Something was happening, something unplanned. Jared looked toward the audience, scanning faces as though searching for an anchor. But the audience remained still, expectant, waiting. "Let me ask you something," Jared said finally, turning back to Sunny. "Do you want honesty, or do you want something that fits the story you're trying to tell?" Sunny didn't hesitate. "I want transparency. That's all." Jared exhaled, slow and sharp. "Here's transparency, then. I care about authenticity. Maybe obsessively. I go all in. That's what makes great work." Sunny's expression didn't shift. Dedication doesn't excuse hurting people. A silence fell, a heavier one. The type that makes the muscles in your back tighten. I've never set out to hurt anyone, Jared said, his voice lower now. But people love to twist things when an actor pushes boundaries. And you don't think your methods invite those questions? Sunny asked. Jared paused, a long pause, almost theatrical but not performative. It was the pause of someone weighing how much to reveal. It's easy to judge from the outside, he said. But the same intensity that people criticize is what wins awards. The same commitment they fear is what brings characters to life. You can't separate the two. Sunny leaned in just an inch, but enough to feel like a step forward. Intensity isn't the issue, she said. Accountability is. Jared's eyes hardened, just slightly. You're assuming there's something to account for. Sunny held her ground. You're assuming there isn't. The line cut through the moment like a blade. A wave rippled across the audience, small gasps, whispers, shifting feet. There's a particular sound an audience makes when they sense they've crossed into forbidden territory. That was the sound filling the studio now. Jared leaned back again. Not relaxed, retreating, recalibrating. So that's what this is, he murmured. You're not interviewing me. You're interrogating me. Sunny didn't flinch. I'm having a conversation that many people wish they could have with you. Or a conversation producers told you to push? Jared asked, and this time the jab wasn't subtle. The studio tightened again. Even the co-hosts, usually quick to jump in, seemed frozen, watching like everyone else. Sunny's voice dropped just slightly, but her control sharpened. No one is telling me what to ask. I make my own choices. And you chose, Jared said, to come at me with assumptions. I chose, Sunny replied, to address concerns openly. If you have nothing to hide, then transparency shouldn't bother you. Jared's face changed, not dramatically, but enough to catch the audience's breath. A flicker, a flash, an internal shift. That's a dangerous statement, he said, and incredibly unfair. Is it unfair, Sunny asked, to point out that people have raised red flags? Red flags. Jared repeated, laughter bubbling up, but without humor. This is unbelievable. Sunny didn't rise to the bait. Jared, she said calmly, do you understand why people perceive some of your behavior as extreme, he finished. Unusual? Too much. Sunny nodded. Yes. Jared's shoulders lifted and fell, a slow, controlled breath. Of course. And you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe I am too much for some people. He let the words settle, let the weight of them hang. But you know what else? He continued. People don't get remembered for being just enough. They get remembered for being extraordinary. Sunny didn't look away. Extraordinary doesn't mean unaccountable. Again, the room stilled. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God," and it seemed to echo through the quiet. Jared rubbed a hand across his jaw. You came into this interview wanting something from me, he said. A confession. A crack in the armor. A headline. Sunny shook her head. No, I wanted honesty. If that becomes a headline, that's on you. For the first time, Jared seemed at a loss for a response. Not defeated, but thrown, tilted off his center. His eyes shifted down, then up, as though grounding himself. Finally, he said softly, honesty isn't always safe. Sunny's reply was immediate. Neither is silence. A collective gasp rolled through the studio, this one louder, sharper. It felt like a breaking point, like the moment just before something irreversible. Even the cameras seemed to hum louder, as if absorbing the tension. Jared blinked slowly, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. You want honesty? He whispered. Fine. Ask your next question. Let's see how far you want to go. The audience froze. Someone coughed, and the sound was deafening in the hush. Sunny picked up her cards again, slowly, deliberately. She didn't look down at them, though. She kept her eyes on him. Here's my next question, she said. Do you think your commitment to roles has ever crossed a personal boundary for someone else, even unintentionally? Jared didn't answer at first. A muscle in his cheek twitched. His foot tapped once against the studio floor. When he spoke, his voice was tight. I think people misunderstand passion. Sunny folded her hands. Passion doesn't override consent. Silence. Not the usual TV silence, the charged, brittle kind. The kind that feels like the world is leaning in to listen. Jared's jaw tightened again. His eyes narrowed, darkened, like storm clouds gathering. Careful, he said quietly. Sunny stared right back, unwavering. Are you saying I shouldn't ask the question? I'm saying, Jared replied, that questions asked with assumptions aren't questions. They're traps. For a moment, a long, elongated, suspended moment, neither of them spoke. The entire studio held its breath, eyes darting between the two like watching a fuse burn toward an unseen explosion. Then Sunny adjusted her seat, maintaining eye contact, and said, "Then answer plainly. No abstractions. No metaphors. Has anyone ever told you that your process made them uncomfortable?" Jared swallowed, a small but visible movement. The kind that tells you the question landed somewhere deep. And then, he didn't speak. The audience noticed at first the sudden stillness. His silence wasn't calm. It wasn't contemplative. It was defensive, bracing, like he was holding something back, something that threatened to spill. Sunny waited. She didn't fill the space. She didn't soften. She let the silence stretch like a rope pulled tight. 5 seconds. 10. 15. The studio felt frozen in place. Jared finally looked down, then breathed in slowly as though forcing the air into his lungs. When his eyes rose again, they were different, colder, more guarded, edged with something like anger. "That," he said in a low, controlled voice, "is a loaded question." Sunny nodded once. Sometimes truth is heavy. The moment landed like a lightning strike. That's when the room went completely, utterly silent. The kind of silence that becomes part of the atmosphere, thick and electric. Jared didn't answer. He couldn't. Or he wouldn't. And Sunny didn't push further. Not yet. Instead, she let the tension simmer, letting the moment expand into something unforgettable, something that would set the stage for everything that would unfold next. The silence in the studio lingered with a strange, unsettling insistence, like an uninvited guest refusing to leave. People shifted in their seats, not from boredom, but from the pressure building in the air. You could almost feel it against your skin, a thrum beneath the lights that made the space feel both too small and too loud, even though no one was speaking. Jared's fingers tapped the arm of his chair once, sharp, precise, like a message in code. Sunny noticed. She didn't comment. She just watched him, steady as stone. He finally broke the silence. "You want me to answer that?" Jared asked quietly. "I asked it," Sunny replied. "I'm waiting." Jared leaned back, letting his body settle into the chair, though nothing about him looked relaxed. It was a performance, and everyone could see it. Even he knew they could see it. "You know," he said at last, "in my career, I've had thousands of conversations. Interviews. Panels. Podcasts. And every once in a while, someone wants to poke at something deeper. I respect that. I do. But this," he gestured slowly, vaguely, as if painting the space between them with meaning. "This feels like something else entirely." Sunny didn't blink. "It feels like accountability." There was no heat in her tone. That was the unnerving part. She wasn't attacking. She wasn't raising her voice. She was simply naming things, placing cards on the table that Jared clearly didn't want to see. He exhaled through his nose, then leaned forward. "Let me ask you something, Sunny. Have you ever been so committed to something, so driven, that people misunderstood your intentions?" "That's not the same," she said. "You didn't even hear the rest. Because I know where it's going." He shook his head. "No, you're assuming where it's going. You're building a narrative around me before I've even spoken. And you're avoiding the question." The audience murmured again, small ripples of unease. A few whispered to one another, but mostly the room was glued to the energy unfolding in front of them. A co-host shifted, debating whether to jump in. But one look at the tension between Sunny and Jared, the electric, magnetic collision forming between them, stopped her. This wasn't interference territory. This was do not touch. This is lightning territory. Jared rubbed his hands together, a nervous habit that looked almost like a ritual, as though he was trying to summon or suppress something inside him. "People exaggerate," he said finally. "People misinterpret. They take one moment out of context and suddenly it becomes a headline." Sunny's gaze was unblinking. "Are you saying every concern ever raised about your methods is an exaggeration?" "Many of them are," he said quickly. "But not all." That question struck him like a physical touch. His head snapped toward her, eyes narrowed. "You're twisting my words. I'm clarifying them." The tension grew a new layer, deeper, darker, more complex. A camera operator shifted his stance. You could hear the faint scrape of his shoe on the floor. Someone in the second row clasped their hands together, so tightly the knuckles turned white. Every tiny movement echoed like it was magnified through a microphone. Sunny kept her tone calm, steady, too steady. "That's what rattled him. You said some concerns are exaggerations," she continued, "which implies that others may have some truth to them. Maybe people misunderstood my process, Jared shot back. Maybe they didn't get it. That doesn't make it harmful. But if someone says they're uncomfortable, she said softly, isn't that enough to reevaluate the process? Jared inhaled sharply, almost a hiss. Sometimes discomfort means you're doing something right. No, Sunny replied. Sometimes discomfort means you're crossing a line. It was a small moment. A sentence. A breath. But it hit like a match thrown toward a trail of gasoline. Jared's jaw tightened. His posture stiffened. You think I don't know where the line is? He asked, his voice low. I think, Sunny said gently, that artists who push themselves often forget to consider the impact on others. He stared at her. Really stared. The kind of stare that feels like an intrusion, like someone trying to understand the architecture of your thoughts without asking permission. Then he leaned back and laughed. Not a light laugh. Not a dismissive one. Something in between, sharp, incredulous, edged with disbelief. You think I'm irresponsible. Sunny didn't smile. I think you're intense. That's not a crime. No one said it was. But you're implying. I'm asking, she said, cutting him off with a quiet firmness. Not implying. Asking. Jared's expression shifted again. Something quieter. More fragile. Then almost instantly it hardened back to steel. Fine, he said. You want an answer? Here's the closest thing you'll get. The audience leaned in collectively. There were times, Jared said slowly, when I pushed myself so far into a role that I didn't see how it affected others. Not because I meant harm, but because I was trying to create something real. Sunny's eyes softened almost imperceptibly. That's honest, she said. But, he added sharply, people also sensationalize. They twist dedication into danger. They turn intensity into intention. You're saying the truth is somewhere in between? I'm saying people want simple stories, Jared replied, voice rising. Villains and victims. Heroes and monsters. But real life? Real artistry? It's not that neat. The co-hosts exchanged cautious glances. This was deep water. Dark water. Sunny spoke softly. Artistry doesn't exempt anyone from responsibility. And fear doesn't justify accusations, he countered. Fear, Sunny repeated. Yes, he said. People are afraid of what they can't understand. Of people who don't fit in neat boxes. Sunny leaned forward. Are you suggesting that concerns about your methods come from fear? Some do. And others. He didn't answer. Not immediately. The silence stretched, pulled thin like a rope ready to snap. Others, he finally admitted, might come from misunderstandings. Or from actual impact, Sunny added quietly. That hit him. His shoulders tensed. His eyes flicked downward for a fraction of a second. Sunny saw it. The audience saw it. Everyone saw the crack in the armor, small, fleeting, but there. Jared pressed his lips into a thin line. You talk about impact, he said. What about intentions? Do they not matter? They matter, Sunny agreed. But intentions don't erase harm. Jared exhaled sharply. You're determined to paint this as harm. I'm determined to explore the truth. He opened his mouth to respond, but a voice from the crowd broke the moment. Let him talk, someone shouted. The studio froze. Sunny looked toward the voice, then back at Jared. You have the floor, she said quietly. Say what you want to say. Jared paused. He didn't rush. He didn't look away. When you're trying to become someone else, he began, it's messy. It's chaotic. It's emotional. And yes, sometimes it affects people around you. But every person who signs onto a film knows they're entering a world of intensity. I'm not a villain. I'm an actor who works hard. No one is calling you a villain, Sunny replied. It feels like it. That's not my intention. Then what is your intention, Sunny? He asked. Because this doesn't feel like curiosity. This feels like an ambush. That's not fair, Sunny said. I'm asking questions many people have. That's my job. No, Jared said, leaning in, voice sharpening. Your job is to ask fair questions, not to feed narratives. Sunny held his stare. She didn't flinch. And what narrative do you think I'm feeding? The one where I'm some kind of danger, he snapped. I never said that. But you implied it. I asked questions, she corrected. Loaded ones. Necessary ones. The temperature in the room seemed to rise. Heat, tension, adrenaline. Call it whatever you want, but it pulsed like a heartbeat under the surface. Jared's breath grew uneven. Not from rage. From something closer to frustration. Maybe helplessness. Maybe fear. Sunny softened her expression, but only slightly. Jared, she said, I'm not here to attack you. I'm here to give you the space to speak honestly. It doesn't feel like that. Because you're defensive. And why wouldn't I be? He snapped. You cornered me. I didn't corner you, Sunny said. Her tone dropped, gentle but unyielding. I confronted you. There's a difference. Jared's eyes flashed. And you think I should thank you for that? No, Sunny said. I think you should reflect on it. The audience audibly reacted. A ripple of gasps and whispered, "Oh wow," filled the air. Jared stared at her, breathing slow, deep, controlled. You want me to reflect on something that might not even be real. If it's not real, Sunny answered, then your answer should be easy. Jared froze. There it was. The point of no return. The truth he didn't want to touch but couldn't escape. I'm not saying you're guilty of anything, Sunny continued. I'm saying the conversation matters. And you're the only one who can speak to your own behavior. His jaw clenched again, hard. Behavior, he repeated. You make it sound so clinical. Would you prefer choices? That struck deeper. He brushed a hand through his hair, exasperated. Why are you doing this? Sunny hesitated. Just slightly. Enough to break the rhythm. Because, she said honestly, you're a public figure whose methods affect real people. That makes the questions important. Jared laughed softly, bitterly. You don't care about the answers. You care about the story. Sunny shook her head. If I cared about the story, I'd stop asking and start accusing. But I'm not. I'm giving you space. He swallowed, eyes darting away for the first time. That meant something. It meant something big. The audience saw it too. They leaned in closer. Quiet, almost reverent. People misunderstand intensity, Jared finally said. That's all I'm saying. Maybe, Sunny said softly. But sometimes intensity isn't the problem. Sometimes the problem is the blind spot it creates. He stiffened. Sunny continued. You said you push yourself so far into your roles that you don't see how it affects others. That's your words, not mine. That's a blind spot. Jared's breathing slowed. Then stopped. Not literally, but the rhythm broke. He looked at her with something raw beneath the surface. Vulnerability, maybe. Or fury. Or both. Are you trying to help me? He asked quietly. Or expose me? A little of both, Sunny said. Because they're connected. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The silence swallowed the room again. A silence deeper than before. A silence that felt like the first moment of an earthquake. Quiet, eerie, just before everything shifts. Sunny sat back. Jared stayed forward. Two energies locked in a fragile, electric standoff. It was clear now. Whatever came next would change the tone of the interview completely. The pressure was rising. The room was shrinking. Something was coming. Something big. Something no daytime audience could ever prepare for. The quiet between them didn't just sit. It grew, expanded, stretched until it felt like a living thing occupying the room. The audience wasn't just watching anymore. They were absorbing. The silence had a weight, a pulse. Someone near the front wiped their palms on their jeans. Another whispered, "This is getting wild." But even whispers felt like blasphemy. Jared slowly lifted his gaze toward Sunny, as if steadying himself before stepping into a storm he didn't fully understand. His voice, when it came, was low, almost hoarse. "You keep saying accountability," he murmured. "But what you're really asking is for me to defend myself against things I didn't do." Sunny didn't push back immediately. She let the remark sit, let it echo, let it fill the space between them. It made the tension sharper. "I'm not asking you to defend yourself," she said finally. "I'm asking you to reflect. Those are different things." "Not from where I'm sitting," Jared answered. "And why is that?" Sunny asked softly, almost gently, but not enough to take the edge off. Jared stared at his hands, flexing and unflexing them like he was gripping something he couldn't see. "Because reflection requires admitting something happened," he said. "And you're asking me to reflect on things that may not have." "You said earlier there were times your intensity affected people," Sunny reminded him. "That's not nothing." He looked up sharply. "That's not the same as causing harm." "I didn't say it was. But you're implying it." Sunny paused again. A deliberate beat, like a conductor controlling the tempo of the moment. "I'm exploring it," she said. "There's a difference." Jared shook his head with a humorless smile. "Your differences are razor thin. And your defensiveness," she replied quietly, "is loud." That did it. The audience let out a collective gasp. Not dramatic, more like breath they'd been holding suddenly escaping. Jared's eyes flickered, a flare of anger, shock, maybe even hurt. "My defensiveness?" he echoed. "Yes," Sunny said. "The way you react. The way you tense up. It says more than the words you choose. This isn't therapy, he snapped. No, she agreed. It's conversation. But conversations can reveal just as much. That line hit him, harder than he expected. His shoulders rose with a sharp inhale. For a moment he looked like he might stand up, just to break the intensity, to escape the spotlight of her gaze. But he didn't. He sat still. Too still. The audience sensed it, the simmering conflict, the emotional stakes rising with every exchange. Jared's voice, when he spoke again, had changed. Lower. Slower. Measured. You keep looking for something, he said. Something behind my words. Something between the lines. Yes, Sunny answered. Because that's where people hide the truth. Jared exhaled, shaking his head. You think I'm hiding something. I think you're afraid of something. That line didn't just land, it detonated. The audience reacted with shock, murmurs rippling like a wave. Jared stiffened. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not, Sunny said, her voice still maddeningly calm. I'm observing. You don't know anything about me. I know what I see. What you see, Jared shot back, is a projection. Then correct it. Silence hit again, harder this time. He didn't respond. Sunny leaned forward slightly, voice softening just enough to edge past his defenses. Jared, what are you afraid people will think? He froze. Not a dramatic freeze. A subtle one. His breath caught. His fingers curled inward. That was the moment. The crack. The shift. The audience felt it like a temperature drop. Sunny's tone remained steady. You said earlier that people misunderstand intense artists. Is that where the fear is? Being misinterpreted? Misjudged? He didn't answer. His eyes darted downward, then up, then away again. Like he was searching the studio for an escape route that didn't exist. Maybe, he said finally. A whisper. Barely audible. Sunny didn't move. Didn't break eye contact. Tell me. His jaw worked, grinding tension. He seemed to debate, internally fiercely, whether to open up or shut down completely. It's not fear, he said eventually. It's frustration. Frustration can hide fear. Sunny, he warned. She held out a hand, palm up, a gesture of invitation, not confrontation. I'm asking because I think the version of you the world sees is only half the truth. He looked at her, eyes narrowing with something that wasn't quite anger. Something more raw. You think I'm scared of judgment? I think you're scared of being misunderstood, she replied. Because misunderstanding grows into something bigger. Something harder to control. Jared swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed with emotion. And that scares you, she said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a mirror. And he didn't like what he saw. Look, Jared said, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Being misunderstood is part of this job. You can't avoid it. You can't control it. People will always decide what they want to believe. Sunny nodded. Yes, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. He closed his eyes briefly, the smallest break in composure. And when he opened them again, they were darker, more guarded. Of course it affects me, he said. I'm human. That admission hit the room like a warm current in cold water. Not dramatic, but real. Honest. Vulnerable in a way he clearly hadn't intended. Sunny softened, just slightly. Then why hide that? Because vulnerability becomes ammunition, he said bitterly. Only when you're surrounded by the wrong people, she replied. But this isn't that. He searched her face for sarcasm, manipulation, traps, something. But he didn't find any. And that seemed to unsettle him even more. You want the truth? He asked finally. Sunny nodded once. Slow. Encouraging. Fine, he said. Sometimes I get lost in the work. I lose track of myself. And I guess when you lose yourself, it's easy to lose sight of how you're affecting others. The audience reacted, not dramatically, just a quiet, collective breath. A soft gasp, a murmur of recognition. Empathy. The moment felt human. Sunny nodded. That's reflection, she said. He frowned. It's reality. And that's why these conversations matter. But you turned it into an interrogation. No, Sunny said gently. You turned it into a battle. His eyebrows lifted. Me. You came in ready to defend, she said. Before I even asked the first question. Jared stared at her. For the first time, he looked unsure. Why would I do that? He asked quietly. Sunny tilted her head, her gaze warm but firm. Because you expected judgment. He blinked. Once. Twice. And you reacted to the judgment you expected, not the questions I was actually asking. He leaned back slowly, the realization landing on him like a weight he hadn't prepared to carry. The audience watched, mesmerized, silent. Jared's voice dropped. Maybe I did. Sunny didn't smile. She didn't celebrate the breakthrough. She simply nodded. You've been in this industry a long time, she said. Long enough to know how people twist your words. How headlines get written. Exactly, Jared said, relieved. You get it. So let me ask you something, Sunny continued softly. Are you answering me, or the headlines you think will follow? He froze. His lips parted, but no words came. The audience reacted, loudly this time. Gasps, whispers, hands flying to faces. That question hit different. It cut through the performance and landed straight in the center of who he was in this moment. Jared swallowed. Slowly. His throat looked tight. That's not fair, he whispered. It's honest, Sunny replied. He looked down. His shoulders rose and fell with a shaky exhale. Maybe I am talking to the headlines, he admitted. Why? Sunny asked gently. He hesitated. His face tightened. Emotion gathered in his eyes, not tears, but something heavier. Because when people twist your words long enough, he said, you start talking like you're already defending yourself. Sunny let that settle. The audience did too. It was a raw truth. A painful truth. And you've learned to expect the worst, she said. Yes, he said softly. And that is exhausting. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The exhaustion was visible for the first time, etched into the corners of his expression. Sunny leaned forward. Then let's stop talking to the headlines, she said, and talk to each other. Jared looked up. Really looked. For the first time, the defenses lowered. Not all the way, but enough. And what do you want to talk about? He asked quietly. Sunny answered without hesitation. The moment everything changed for you. The moment you realized intensity had consequences. The audience sucked in air. Jared's eyes widened, surprise, disbelief, maybe even fear. I'm not talking about rumors, Sunny clarified. I'm talking about a moment you remember. A moment that made you stop. He hesitated. Then his lips parted. And for the first time all day, he seemed ready to tell the truth. The real one. Not the rehearsed one. Not the defensive one. But the truth he'd buried deep. The truth he wasn't supposed to say on live television. The studio lights hummed softly, the audience leaned in, and the world felt like it was holding its breath. What he said next would change everything. The silence that followed Jared Leto's final words didn't just settle over the studio. It crashed down like a wave, smothering every breath in the room. For a moment, it felt as if even the cameras hesitated, as if the entire building leaned in to listen to the fallout of what had just unfolded. Sunny Hostin's expression flickered between disbelief and restraint, her eyes still locked where Jared had been standing only seconds ago. His departure had been abrupt, but the sound of his words, sharp, deliberate, unapologetic, still clung to the air like smoke after a fire. The audience remained frozen, unsure if they were supposed to clap, boo, or simply sit in stunned silence. All the bright studio lights, the polished desks, the vibrant colors. Everything suddenly seemed dimmer, as though the room itself was trying to process the fracture that had split through the energy of the show. Even Whoopi Goldberg, who had witnessed more on-air chaos than most hosts ever would in a lifetime, seemed momentarily stalled, her eyes shifting over the table, searching for grounding. Sunny took a slow breath, smooth but trembling just faintly at the edges. Her fingers, resting atop the cue cards she had scarcely glanced at during the last stretch of the interview, curled as though holding onto something invisible, something steady. Well, she finally said, voice calm but carrying the slightest echo of the blow she had just taken. That was unexpected. It was the type of line a host used to diffuse tension on live TV, but the micro-tremor beneath it gave away the emotional charge beneath her composure. The audience let out a fractured, uneven ripple of nervous laughs. Not because it was funny, but because the silence had grown too heavy to hold. The atmosphere felt like standing in the aftermath of a lightning strike, the smell of ozone still in the air. Sarah Haynes blinked rapidly, as though coming out of a trance. I mean, look, she said gently, trying to guide the ship back onto calmer water. Live TV is unpredictable. But I think this one might go down in the books. Joy Behar snorted, though her tone wasn't mocking this time. No kidding. I'm going to need an aspirin after that. Even she seemed shaken, her humor softer, without its usual sharp edges. But the cameras were still rolling, still capturing every flicker of emotion across the table. And somewhere off stage, producers were surely scrambling, whispering rapid-fire decisions into headsets, trying to figure out how to steer the moment without letting it become a total meltdown in front of millions. Sunny straightened slightly in her chair. Not defensive, not angry, but composed in a way that showed years of professionalism tightening around her like armor. Yet anyone paying attention could see the reflection of the confrontation still lingering in her eyes. She had asked the question that sparked the eruption. She had stood her ground. And now she bore the weight of the moment in a way only live television could demand. Whoopi finally broke the tension with a low sigh. "Okay," she murmured with a measured smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll unpack what we can." Her voice carried that famed Whoopi steadiness, the calm in the storm. But even she looked like she wasn't quite sure how to categorize what had just happened. The music cue rose, the lights shifted, and the studio camera pulled back as the show slid into commercial. But the audience didn't move, didn't chatter the way they normally would, didn't reach for their phones, not right away. They just sat there, stunned, wide-eyed, whispering only after several seconds had passed. It was as if they were processing something historical, something volatile, something they would later tell friends they witnessed live. When the cameras weren't on them, Sunny exhaled quietly. Sarah placed a gentle hand over her arm. Joy leaned in slightly, her expression soft in a way fans rarely saw. Whoopi didn't say anything at first. She just gave Sunny a look that said it all. The show must go on, but nobody pretended the moment hadn't shaken them. The show resumed, but the air never fully cleared. They talked around the edges of the incident, trying to maintain professionalism, but every viewer watching at home could feel the tension vibrating just beneath their words. It was one of those rare moments where the veneer of daytime TV, polished, predictable, neatly packaged, cracked enough for the world to peer directly into the real emotions underneath. And then, after the closing music played and the episode wrapped, the real storm began. Within minutes, not hours, minutes, social media erupted like a volcano. Hashtags lit up every corner of the internet. Clips from the confrontation were posted, reposted, slowed down, zoomed in, analyzed frame by frame. People argued over who was right, who was wrong, who crossed a line, who held firm. Some viewers defended Jared's emotional outburst, praising his raw honesty. Others called it disrespectful, unprofessional, unnecessary. And just as many came to Sunny's defense, praising her composure and insisting she had simply asked a fair, necessary question. It was chaos, digital wildfire. Commentators, influencers, entertainment networks, late-night hosts. Everyone had something to say about what happened on The View that morning. And the reactions weren't mild. They were heated, polarized, fierce. People weren't just debating the moment. They were taking sides as passionately as if it were a political standoff. The View released a brief statement online, emphasizing respect, professionalism, and dialogue. The usual diplomatic language crafted to extinguish flames. But the fire only grew. Jared Leto posted nothing. No statement, no clarification. His silence only added to the mystery and to the speculation. Sunny Hostin, meanwhile, trended worldwide. Clips of her unflinching gaze, her calm voice, her unwavering confidence circulated with captions like, "This is journalism, Sunny stays solid," and "The moment that shook the studio." The debate spilled into talk shows, podcasts, morning radio, even news segments. It was everywhere. People weren't just discussing the confrontation. They were reliving it, reinterpreting it, turning it into a cultural flashpoint. By nightfall, millions had seen it. And the story, the tension, the shock, it kept feeding itself. But through all the noise, all the chaos, all the back-and-forth commentary, one thing became certain. What happened between Jared Leto and Sunny Hostin wasn't just a moment. It was a moment that would be remembered, replayed, dissected for weeks, maybe months. A moment that would leave a mark. And now, as the studio lights have dimmed, as the fallout continues, as fans and critics take their stances, the story ultimately returns to you. Because this isn't just a celebrity clash. It isn't just a viral interview. It's a moment where emotion met confrontation, where ego collided with accountability, where the calm cracked open and the storm finally broke loose. So now, the screen lingers, the echoes fade, and it's your turn to step into the conversation. What do you think? Did Jared go too far? Was Sunny justified? Who was right and who crossed the line? Tell us in the comments. Your voice matters in this story as much as anyone's. And if you want more cinematic breakdowns, more explosive moments, more behind-the-scenes emotion and drama from the biggest stages in entertainment, Make sure you subscribe to Stage View right now. Hit the like button, drop your thoughts below, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story that shakes the room. Because this was only the beginning.